1, 2, 3. I do need to get one of those clapper things. All right, here we go. Hello and welcome into the Section 109 podcast from Studio Breezy with Pablo Juan, Matthew, Jim from the 423 SoccerPod, and Mix. We're here to talk about something we've waited a little while to talk about to make sure we had our thoughts in order. The 2023 CFC Women's WPSL season. We're going to digest it in the whole. We're going to talk about different pieces, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, what we're excited about, what we were less excited about, and anything in between. But first, if you're a player or a player's family and you're listening to this, turn this shit off. Don't listen to us. Don't listen to it around kids. We probably are going to curse, and we might say things that like are negative as we're going to try to grade things, right? First of all, none of those things are meant towards anybody. None of those things are meant as offensive. Like, again, you probably shouldn't listen to this if you're a player. It might be, if we judge that we need to be better on the field, like that might not feel good, right? But also, if you're a player and you are listening to this, thank you. Thank you for 2023. Maybe you were around in 2022 as well. Thank you. Y'all represented us wonderfully on the field and in the community. I'll let Jim and Matt say kind of how they feel, but like I'm just so grateful that you guys chose to spend your summer here, that you chose to wear the blues, and I hope our paths will cross again, whether it's on the field next year or another year or in the stands or wherever it is. You're part of our family now, and thank you for doing that. And you're once a blue, always a blue. Y'all have anything to add?
No, you pretty well covered it.
Yeah, I didn't do this when is this one of the things you're supposed to do?
During the intro?
During the intro. Is that for these folks?
I just started it. Just started doing it.
The folks on the podcast have no idea what we're doing. But
Yeah. Oh yeah, like the majority of our listenership has no idea what we're doing because the YouTube doesn't get as many. But if you don't want to look at us, I understand.
Yeah.
We're not the best looking guys.
Yeah, voice for radio.
Speaking of which, I'm going to go straight to a listener question. Jim, this is a listener question exclusively for you.
Yeah.
It says bonus for Jim, excluding Smitty, who is undoubtedly the correct answer to this question. Mm-hmm. Who is the best looking Section 109 podcast host?
Mix.
Good answer.
Great answer. Great answer.
I've been practicing that for since I scrolled through and actually did. It was whichever dog was going to be closest.
Yeah, Toby is definitely very cute, but he has disappeared. Yeah. Let's talk about the regular season, boys. I'm going to take us through chronologically, and we can stop wherever we want to stop, talk about moments, whatever we want to go. First game of the season, we open up at home against Nashville Rhythm, the reigning Final Four. Did they make the final or just the Final Four?
It was like Final Four, Elite Eight, something like that.
They lost in the semifinal. That's what I remembered as well. So we go in against them, and this is the measuring stick. We've started twice in a row against them, and I was like, man, we are in for it. Let's go. And by the way, I came out of that game pretty excited. Were we the better team? No. But we had the better mentality. They crumbled. We didn't. We made it 2-2, and man, was I feeling good.
Turns out that was a bit of a spoiler on Nashville for the rest of their season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were the only points they dropped.
Yep.
Until they also crumbled with a nice lead against Charlotte in the playoffs.
Ouch.
I mean, sucks to suck. How were you boys feeling after that game or during that game?
I was encouraged about the performance in that game. I don't think with going into the season, I did not expect that we would be better than Nashville or anything like that. I figure we would make a step forward, and the question was always going to be where do we end up in that kind of matchup, and being just below them, but like punching the shit out of them is exactly where I was hoping we were going to be. And game one, we were there. And that comeback and the way that the girls played
and the rain and the terrible weather.
It was so good. And being under the tents.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the tents.
It was fantastic. It was a great start to the season. And yeah, it was fantastic.
Jim, tell me your feelings after the 7-0 home win against FC Birmingham, the second game of the season.
I felt very
bad for those women on the other side of the field.
You felt sympathy?
I did feel sympathy. Yeah. I mean, after the first game, I was like, we were 2-0 down, and I was like, not this again. And then we came back. I was really excited for the rest. And then the 7-0. I mean, I had thought, because was that their first match, or was that their second?
No,
that was their second.
They
had already been drilled by somebody
Yes.
else. So I kind of figured that was coming, but the only thing I took away from that was the difference in athleticism between the two teams was just, well, you could see it in warm-ups. I mean, when I watched warm-ups, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well
And
for them.
The difference in our team's athleticism this year versus 2022.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One shout out in that game, goalkeeper Katie Irving for FC Birmingham. I don't know how widely this is known, but
This is amazing.
we were finding different Smurf things to call her in the second half because we were bored and winning by several goals. And we landed on Grouchy Smurf or Grumpy Smurf or something like Grumpy. And it seemed to stick. You're down 4 or 5 goals, like you're going to be a little bit grumpy. And a couple weeks later or something like that, she tagged CFC on Instagram in a story and had made a shirt that like had her name on the back of it or on the front of it or something, and it had a very, very unpleasantly looking Smurf, and below it said Grumpy Smurf, and tagged the club and shout out. It was all in good fun. It was great, and I think we sent her a scarf.
I think I still need to send her a scarf. I think that was actually my
Bastard.
I know. I think
no.
I just wrote, actually, if you look in the doc, I just wrote myself a note there. I got to find out if I pawned that off on somebody else or if I didn't do it.
Okay.
But it's still time. There's still time.
That was I didn't see that tag. So when you shared that today or yesterday, I can't remember. I mean, she's my favorite non-CFC player now.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
And she was a great sport. She had a really, really good game.
Yeah, she kept them in it.
As good as you could have playing.
When you're a goalkeeper who loses 7-0 and you're the best player on their team, woof.
By the way, that's not the only time that happened this year.
Yeah, by the way, she should show up for CFC tryouts next year. 2-2 away draw next game at 865 Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee Alliance, whatever the hell they are. How are we feeling? How are we?
Yeah, I watched this game back. I was... So, fun fact, the bachelor party streak does not apply to women's.
Okay.
It's exclusively a men's streak for us.
How many bachelor parties have you been to this year?
Oh, fuck, man.
Oh, don't act like
many.
it was hard.
Well, also, you decided that one of my work trips was a bachelor party, too. So, like...
Work trip, bachelor party, tomato.
Yeah, so I think it was a great point, given that we came back from 2 goals down. I think in that game, it reminded me a lot of the Nashville game because we were not the better time, the better side against Knoxville away. But still, that mentality was really, really good. Being able to earn something that you didn't necessarily deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it makes sense for, if we could steal enough results. This is this point in the season. I think if you could steal enough results against teams that are better than you, you gotta finish somewhere decent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where we were, especially going into the next match where we won 3-0. Fucking like 2 wins, 2 draws, and really, I think we're actually on top of the table at that point in time. It's a really, really good place to be. Like, we'd gotten tactics and then mentality, and we were on the right track. It was always going to be tough to overcome Nashville at that point in time, but we also had an opportunity the next match to give ourselves a shot at a really staking claim to the top of the table.
Jim, did you go to that one?
Which one?
The Knoxville away?
No, I did not.
So I went to that one. And I'm not this. I just wanted to make sure in case either of you could chime in on this. I forgot that both of you weren't there. What I liked is Knoxville actually had a decent setup.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Good stream, which I saw later. They had legitimate it had it wasn't alcohol, but they had like an actual concession stand set up with legitimate concessions in 2 different lines. They had a merch tent. They had stands. They had people that seemed to care. They had a pregame, like official pregame spot. They had a beer at that pregame spot named after the team. I'm sure it was a commercial deal of some kind. I don't pretend they were, but they had at that place. They had a jersey hung up, and they had like I think maybe a scarf, and they had schedules on the wall. And we ended up there by happenstance before the game, and it was cool. It was a good experience. It was fun. And I think that there's a real chance if they decide to continue doing that, because they're doing WPSL and NPSL, that we will have a little bit of a rivalry potentially there. They had they didn't have any real fans, like supporters, but they had like a reasonable number of people there, including some gentleman who tried to fight TJ and I. So for no reason, he said we called his kid an idiot. And first of all, that's not worth fighting over. Second of all, no one called your kid an idiot. Where like no one even knows who your kid is. Like anyway, it was a whole thing. But it continues the women's soccer parents who have never seen supporters before being very offended that there are people there playing drums and beating and beating drums and waving flags. But it was a great time, and I was just really shocked at how well they did things because the WPSL standard is so stupid low.
Yeah.
And at that game I believe they had ball kids as well, which I know I went back and listened to y'all's review last year that you did together, and then the review that you and I did together, and Jim and I both had the same, like, why the fuck aren't there ball kids at all these games?
Yeah,
it's so frustrating. But that game was actually someone who took it reasonably seriously, and I was I'm grateful for that, and I'm hopeful that at least one other team in the conference, Nashville doesn't, will take it a little more seriously.
I was surprised. FC Alliance is they're a really solid club. I mean, as a youth club. I mean, they really, and we've had a relationship with them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't really surprised. I mean, I'm still continuing. I'm surprised more that Nashville doesn't do a thing.
Yeah, I agree.
With as good as the team they've got, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. They were they were kind of not knowing anything about what they would be like in their first year, or what the other teams in the eastern side of our division was. I thought they would be kind of our measuring stick, and so when we came out 2-2, I was pretty happy. Again, I would have preferred us not to go down 2-0 again, but
yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point in the season, it was still like, we're going to put it together. We're going to put it together on the field. Next game, 3-0 away Atlanta Fire United. That was a fun game.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch this game live on the stream, and it was an interesting one. We were better in terms of chance creation, but still not like really good yet. We hadn't really like put together enough like good moves. But the cool thing about soccer, and we've seen this happen on the men's side quite a bit this year, is you don't necessarily have to string 15 passes together to create a goal. Like sometimes players just make plays, and Nadia just had a fucking play, and then Sam Maudsley had a fucking play, and then we were able to actually put together a nice piece of play for that third goal, and it was like, for me, that game was okay. This is starting to really come together now, because Birmingham, you can kind of throw that one out. You're not really playing against any competition. You've come back from in two matches down 2-0 against better teams to scrap away a draw, but this is the first time that Atlanta Fire felt like, okay, we're probably better than them, but we haven't really put together too much yet, and then we did through some great individual play that helped open up a game. Yeah, and
Welcome to Bangerville was the title of our
and now and this is where you end up at 2 wins and 2 draws, and you're on top of the table right now.
And like, I didn't think 2 draws was going to be enough to get us through as a number 1 seed, but I was hoping it could sneak us into that top little bit, because remember what happened last year, and spoiler alert, it happens this year too. Some teams don't want to go to the playoffs,
right,
and things can happen. But then came the 1-4 away loss to Nashville Rhythm. which was there was a conflict with the home game, so we were at the men's game in section 109 watching that game. Somebody had it on a phone and was talking about it, that was not it wasn't as bad as a scoreline suggested.
Yeah.
But it was, they beat us.
It felt similar.
It kind of ended our season at that point.
It felt
for making the playoff, for going through as with any chance of controlling our own destiny. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It felt similar watching the game later to obviously knowing the scoreline, but it felt similar to the Nashville home game in that, like, yep, they're the better team. They're not crazy better, but they're the better team. And then they just Nashville just made some plays, and there was, you switch off a little bit for one moment and all of a sudden, bang, there's a goal. Nashville's on top of the conference for a reason, right? And that little bit extra quality that they have, it's not, I don't think it's reasonable if you are the second favorite team in a game with two teams. It's not reasonable to think you can sniff out two draws in two matches. At some point, the quality will show up, and I think that's the difference in dropping that one. Is Nashville's quality just showed up, and it was enough. It made the difference. Not having Sam Maudsley massively hurt us. She spoiler alert, she played those first 4 games, didn't play the last 4, and I think losing, truthfully, our only 6, our only actual 6, I think really hurt us.
Oh, without a doubt, that injury, she really kind of sewed everything together. And I don't think I realized how much she sewed everything together until she wasn't there. And it was like, oh no, everything is coming apart at the seams just a little bit. Jim, the next one was a 1-3 home loss to Knoxville, to A65 Alliance. How are you feeling for that one?
Annoyed. Just really annoyed. Those were Knoxville had one. They had one strategy that game, if I remember correctly. It's just kick it long and send a forward down and score. And it was just frustrating that we didn't, or we couldn't, or we didn't adjust to it, and it was just annoying.
We were not switched on for the first goal off a long ball. We were not switched on for the second goal, which came off of a throw-in. And just it was a well-worked goal from them in that you still have to execute that pass. But we basically opened and put down the red carpet, their ability to walk into the box on that one. And then we weren't switched on for the third goal, which was early in the second half, on another long ball.
Yep.
And from then on, it became the CFC show. But it
should have been the CFC show before that,
right? You're asking. You're asking the team a lot, because that group that night should have been in a position to go toe to toe and have a good fight, and see what you can do on your home field, and to give up, to go down 2 goals just so quickly. You're asking some magic from the team that's already come back from 2 goals down twice, including once against Knoxville, and you're not getting back into that game no matter how hard you try.
Also, I'd have to go back and look, and I don't have it in front of me, but we had a couple other players out with injury.
Yeah, I don't believe Ingalls was in there.
Sam didn't play.
Ingalls was in the Knoxville game.
Oh, she was, okay.
But she was not in the previous. She wasn't in the
Nashville game,
in the Atlanta Fire or the Nashville game.
Okay.
And the Nashville, that was the same night as Juan's game, so Summer wasn't there. Which I'm not saying we beat Nashville necessarily if Summer's there, but in a short amateur season, we knew this in the NPSL. We saw this in the NPSL. We've seen it in the WPSL now. You can lose players for a game or two pretty easily. Sometimes it's a family vacation. Something happens and you miss out on players or injuries, which they started piling up here at the end of the season. And you really saw us kind of the dip in form other teams kind of like getting it together, and then us losing for injuries, and Sam Mosley being kind of chief among those.
Yeah.
It's a real problem.
I think Sam's injury really changed things for us because
we couldn't go forward with the same. We couldn't control the tempo in the ball because she was able to control in possession a lot better, and then we just couldn't defend in the same way because she was able to have enough athleticism to get around and do the thing, but also enough defensive ability. Like she just had the balance for all of it.
Yeah, and then when you
were either
you
playing
stick
a pure
Ava Van Doren back there, or you stick Nadia back there, you're taking away
an offensive creator.
attacking ability because you're sending it further away from the field or from the goal, and yeah, I mean it's just tough.
And we lost another. I think this is a question that we might ask. We might answer later, but we lost another midfielder who in the first game really looked good, and then she went home.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that could have made a big difference in the season. Yeah, we'll get to that in the listener questions. But it shows like the kind of lack of depth by the end of the season that we had in the midfield. So much though that Katie started starting in the midfield.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at my lineup notes. But I do remember in the Knoxville game, she was shifted into midfield to provide a little bit more athleticism, which was one of the things that allowed us to help. Not let Knoxville get out, so we were able to keep them under wave after wave of pressure. And obviously it wasn't enough in that game, but it was a sign of something to come because we did, I believe, run her out there in the away match at Charlotte.
So the real backbreaker of the season, the one for me that was actually demoralizing, like the Nashville game was like a bummer, but like not super unexpected. The Knoxville game was like, damn it. But it just felt like, well, at least we can go, like, if we go out to Charlotte and we kind of do our thing, I'll feel better about this. And then we went out there and got our asses kicked.
I was really nervous about that Charlotte game because I knew they were good.
Yeah.
They were good, it turned out.
I think they had drawn with Charlotte Eagles at one point.
But they had just put someone to the sword before I can't remember.
Like someone like not terrible.
I think it may have been Knoxville.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They were always going to be like, I was always worried that they were going to be more like a Charlotte Eagles Nashville level.
They drew Nashville 1-1, I think.
Is that the week before?
No, we were the only ones that took points off Nashville.
Knoxville, then they drew Knoxville. I thought it was. Anyway, might not have been the week before, but yeah.
And I think they might have drawn Charlotte Eagles at one point, but the point remains, like I was worried that they were going to be more in the Knoxville and up tier than in. They obviously were going to be better than a Birmingham or a Soda City, but not even like the Atlanta Fire. And it turns out they were good. They were athletic. We were very depleted. We did not travel. We only traveled like maybe 4 subs or something like that. We were very banged up at this point in time. And it
was a long trip, right?
And it was a long trip, so players might not have been available because of like work or other commitments.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
this is the thing that happens in amateur soccer. Like
if you leave on a Friday morning, which by the way, I don't know what time they left on Friday, but they did go up a day early, like they did it properly. But if as an example, and I don't remember who, but let's say Sage is working at a law firm and she has to work on Friday. I don't remember if she was available or not, but as an example, if Summer had been working a nursing job, which she is a nurse, on that Friday and couldn't leave early, like you would lose that player. So yeah, it was rough. Also, they were just good, and we weren't playing our best soccer at that point.
Is that our first overnight for the women's team?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That was also the first game without Avery Catlett. And
that really showed.
And it showed.
That really showed. I don't want to like dwell on that one, but that was a rough one. So then we come home and we needed, and this is a spoiler, it doesn't work out, but we needed to win by 7. We needed to win 7-0 or 8-1 or whatever in order to have a chance to move over Knoxville in the standings.
Right.
With results went our way. Matthew was very excited about this. And we had Katie and Nadia, I don't know if we've talked about this, on the podcast, and we talked to them about this. And they were like, don't tell anybody. And we're like, what do you mean? They're like, don't tell anybody. And we're like, kind of like, why? And they're like, we don't want anybody to know. We don't want the mentality to change. Like, we want everybody to be like, locked in and focused. So apparently the only people who knew, or at least that we know knew, was, and not that we were the only ones that knew, because other people knew too, because Coach Coach Juan knew.
Coach Juan definitely
Randy knew. Nadia knew, and Katie knew. And I don't think anybody else, and maybe like one or two other players knew, but they didn't tell each other. So like at the end of, you can see first of all, every goal we scored. So we start that game, actually, let's go back to Matthew's superstition. We start that game, and at a certain point, Matthew is freaking out because we're winning 1-0. I think at halftime. I think it's 1-0 at halftime.
It's 1-0 at halftime.
Right.
And we are dominating, but we're not like scoring. And Matthew is fully apoplectic.
It was an early free kick too. That was it.
He is so upset. And so we're in
because like Soda City was fucking shit.
Terrible. Yeah.
Like their goal difference was like -40 or something. Like on the
But my thought was, if we win 4-0, who cares? We won, right? I wanted to win 7-0, but I wasn't fretting. But he was freaking out. So he comes up to the top of the section, and he ends up staying there with a beverage. And then we proceed to score 3 goals in quick succession. And then
early in the second half.
And then he can't move because he's moved, and he hasn't ever watched a game up there with me, like in the middle of the section. It's always down front or either in the middle or on the side, or sometimes up a little bit in the middle, but it's never back with me. So he watches, and then we go on to score 6 more. And if you notice, Nadia gets the ball on almost every single one out of the net and runs it back to the middle because she knows. No one else knows, but she knows. And from then, the after that doubleheader as well, the men won 2-0 or 3-0 in the next game, whoever we played.
LA Force 3-0.
And so Matthew has to watch every game with me up there because he ruined it for himself.
I want to point out, we don't get that 7th goal until like the 88th minute or something crazy. And like you see, like we're up. You can, if you go back and watch the stream, we're up 6-0. It's 86th, 87th, 88th. I don't know, maybe close to stoppage time. It's late, and ball goes out for a corner kick because we're still pushing, doing whatever. And like Nadia's playing basically like the 6 for us in this game, just distributing, doing all the things, whatever. And you see her haul fucking ass to get the ball and go to the corner flag. I mean, she is sprinting
when we're up 6-0
because I think they did finally say,
somebody said something
like after the 6th goal. They said, "Hey, we need one more to like give ourselves a chance." But like they waited until that moment to do it,
and they got it done.
And turns out, by the way, the ball where the corner where she is sprinting
is the one they score.
Is the one that she sends right to Avery Angles to put away.
Yeah, that was good vibes. 7-0 was good. I felt like a good way to end the season. It sucked that we weren't going to get, and we'll talk about kind of like obviously where we arrived and whatever else, but at least we finished on a strong win.
We did. So one game, nothing really to play for except there was something to play for, and against an opponent that like that goal was achievable, and it was difficult. We made it a little difficult on ourselves at time, but at the end of the day, the players had something to play for, and they went out and they did everything they possibly could. They got 7 goals, didn't give up anything, gave themselves a chance to move up at one spot in the table, and that's all you can ask for. In that particular game, that's all you can ask for.
So our record on the season: 3 wins, 3 draws. 3 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws. 11 points, 6th place in the table. Last year, we were 1-1-6. Just as a thing. And the table was Nashville Rhythm on top with 22 points. Charlotte Eagles in 2nd place. That is your WPSL champions, Charlotte Eagles, with 17 points in 2nd place. Georgia Impact, who we never played, in 3rd place with also a 17, but I guess Charlotte must have gone up over them on goal difference. Women's Football Club of Charlotte with 14 points in 4th place. The 865 KVT Alliance in 5th place with 12 points, and we had 11 points because they ended up drawing and not losing. And then Atlanta Fire were after us with 6, Birmingham was 0, and Soda City was 0.
An interesting dynamic to this is
Birmingham played 8 and Soda City played 7?
Well, that's because Soda City and Atlanta Fire had a game that was canceled or postponed, canceled, whatever, for storms, and they just never bothered to make it up because there was no real reason to. But what I was going to say about the standings is obviously a team like Charlotte Eagles, we did not play. A team like Georgia Impact, we did not play. And part of there are 9 teams in this conference. Everyone plays, you play 8 games, but like we played Nashville twice. We played Knoxville twice. And some teams avoided some of those better teams. Like Georgia Impact's a great example here. I think they actually drew against like Charlotte Eagles or something like that. But they also got like Birmingham twice or Soda City twice or something,
and did not
like
get Nashville.
And did not get Nashville. And so like it's incredibly unbalanced. And part of the reason for that is the Carolinas conference of the WPSL was rated by USLW League.
Bastards.
And so like the Southeast and the Carolinas were just put together in a kind of a temporary solution for this year. I think and I hope that they work on correcting that. And I don't exactly know how, but so that like our conference is going to become a little bit more standard. Like keep Nashville, keep Knoxville, you keep the Georgia teams, you keep Birmingham with us. Like that's a reasonable, I think that's 6 teams. And hopefully if we get lucky, which is one of the things I've talked about before, even if we can go to, 5 opponents, play everybody home and away, 10 games, that would be acceptable. That would be good.
Yeah.
We just need more games.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reasonable way of doing it.
Well, what do we play? 8? We play 8?
We played 8 each of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I want to see more conference games. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's dependent on some recruitment in North and South Carolina for the WPSL, but hopefully that's where we can get to. In addition to, and I think there's a listener question, or there's something I care about in there about. I'd love to see a preseason friendly, or at least a friendly or something to get an extra game. 4 home games is just not enough. It's the season happens so quickly, and sometimes scheduling quirks with some of these teams that can only play at certain times, and they have to have their heads scratched and their bellies rubbed and all this shit. With some scheduling quirks, like you can play half your or 3/4 of your home schedule in a week. And it was obviously worse last year than it was this year, but more games gives people more chances to see the team. It gives more chances for people to fall in love with the team, and I think that's really important.
I agree. Let's go through some stats. Goals: Summer Hernandez with 7, Chrison St. Louis with 6, Kaylee Burrell with 2, Avery Engels with 2, and Nadia Ivanchenko with 2. And then Sam, Sage, and Ava all had 1. And then you have Katie here listed with none, but she definitely had 1.
Oh, yeah, good call. She definitely had 1.
You have her listed here. You just didn't put the number. Oh. How dare you? Assists, Summer Hernandez had 3. Bailey Dull also had 3. Katie, Nadia, and Avery Engels each had 2. Addie, Sage, Brianna Hurtado, and Kaylee all had 1.
I'm going to point out that CFC Academy player, Addie Chapman.
You're damn right it is. Hockey assists, Katie had 2, which you can kind of see where a lot of the danger came from as you start, which is your favorite thing, why hockey assists are a favorite of yours. And Nadia had 1, and Lupe had 1.
So it's really interesting. I think it shows to like how many goals this team scored on set pieces, which speaks a little bit to mentality, speaks a little bit to coaching, speaks a little bit to preparation. Because there were a bunch of set piece goals, and just not as many goals from the run of play.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I will also point out we scored. Granted, we played some worse teams. If you remember last season, we scored I think 8 goals total. Am I remembering that correctly? Something like that.
I mean, it's something. It's not many.
We scored less than 10 last year. We scored a lot more than 10. And I know you can chalk it up to or you can maybe chalk it up to be like, oh, we played a couple bad teams. That's also true, but we were much improved on the offensive output end. 3
goals against Nashville this year compared to 1 last year.
Yeah.
Let's just start there.
Absolutely. All right, let's start with some offensive players of the season. I'll go first.
Okay.
Chrison St. Louis. She just went on and scored a goal every game, basically. She had 6 goals. I don't think she had 2 goals in a single game. I don't believe. If she did, it was only 1 game. But I think she just scored 1 in essentially almost every game. We played 8. She scored 6.
There's a couple she didn't play. I don't think.
So she may have scored 1 in every game she played. I should have gone and looked at that. But she was my offensive player of the year, player of the season rather, and she
7 games, 6 goals.
7 games, 6 goals. I was really, really happy with not only how she played, but the way she was different from her other forwards. She had a different style. She had a different way of playing. She was like a foil for whoever she was playing with. She played differently. It wasn't like for like, which was good. It made us much more dangerous, made it much more creative. And yeah, I was really, really, really liked her. She was my offensive player of the year. Jim.
Well, I think I thought about her, but with goals and assists and leading the line with energy and pressing, and I just couldn't choose anybody but Summer. It was. I went in thinking, oh, of course, they're going to pick Summer, but then I looked at the stats and I just remembered what she gave to the team, and I think she's the offensive player of the year.
7 goals, 3 assists. That's 10 goal contributions. It's Summer.
Cool. Defensive player of the season. Jim, you have Avery Engel.
I have Avery Engel.
He and I both have Avery Catlett, so we're all on the same Avery page, but it's different Averys. Same page, at least for the first name.
So this is 1A, 1B for me. I give her the nod. I just felt she was. I think she was a presence, but she also. I just had this mental image of her also picking the ball up as a center back and being like, "There's nobody in front of me.
I'm gonna dribble.
I'm just gonna freaking go." And she scored a couple.
Yeah, 2 goals, 2 assists.
2 assists. I know that looking at offensive stats when you're choosing a defensive player of the year is
very Arsenal.
Is very yeah, probably a little bit. I remember the team looking different when she wasn't there, and the fact that you both picked Catlett and you reminded me that Catlett was missing is making me worried that I'm remembering the wrong Avery. But I remember us just being different when she wasn't in the lineup, and I just felt she was a real presence, and
there was certainly a physical presence. She was our tallest player.
Yeah.
She brought the thing that we were missing last year,
being left-footed.
being left-footed, yes.
Yeah.
But also
she brought athleticism. She brought size.
There's a reason why our set pieces were better this year.
Oh yeah, and defending far better defending on set pieces.
Yeah,
and it in large part was her.
Yeah. So I have no problem with picking Avery Catlett. I think if we had if the two of them had been together for the entire season and they had played, I think we would have been a better team.
Absolutely. And one thing we forgot to mention towards the end of that season when we were going through the review is that Avery left before the end of the season to go back to college, and Avery Catlett did. And between Avery Ingles having being a little bit unavailable, Sam Maudsley having the injury, and then Avery Catlett leaving for school, our defense was very different towards the end of the season.
And I actually had put in when I typed it into the wrong show notes. That I would give a shout out to Maudsley, and I know that's strange because she only played half. But her absence reveals to me how important she was. So it's hard to give somebody a player of the season when they didn't play half the season. But we were so different without her. It made me consider her as a defensive player.
I think that's completely fair, and in fact, I'll just go ahead and deliver her as an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I think that's completely worthy. I went with Catlett just because she didn't show up in the stat line, but what she brought was just a rock to the defense, and frankly, she was also that. Her along with Anna last year were without them, we would have been absolutely in the tall grass.
But I will also point out that the Avery Catlett of last year, who was a solid player, and the Avery Catlett of this year, who might have been the best center back on the team, her last year at UTC, I think it was her senior season last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, she made a big step forward, in my opinion. And
absolutely. She was a different player this summer when she came back.
I came into the season going like, hey, I'm happy she's back, but thinking like she might be a starter, she might just be like a rotation player, and she was like arguably the first name on the team sheet.
Well, and I wish we had other stats. I mean, because my recollection of the season is I don't remember Ingles losing an aerial duel. I mean, I don't remember her. I remember her putting in really important defensive headers on set pieces and crosses. So I wish we had more stats because that's what I remember. But I'm getting up in age, so I could be misremembering.
I think it's also good when we have a couple different players to go back and forth on. So I love the Avery Ingles shout. I don't think it's a bad one at all. I had Catlett for the same reason that Matthew did, but that's also because we share the same soccer brain, which is true. It's bad for doing a podcast. So. We have a question here for best things that CFC got right during 2023, and I actually think I want to skip it because I think we're going to talk about some things we felt like went well and maybe didn't go well.
Sure.
But yeah, I will say they can. I'll just say one thing. They continued this for me the same thing they had last year, which was the game day feel when at the stadium. Not necessarily with some food and beverage, because there was some food and beverage was improved, but it was not like there was a couple whatevers, and the double headers were not a great choice, and a few other things. Mm-hmm. But overall, the women's games felt like the men's games did. The production value, the advertising boards, the stuff on the scoreboard, like everything felt the level at which I would want it to do. They did that last year, and they still did it this year, and that I want to give like just big props for because it takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And it is what we should do. I'm not trying to give kudos for something like, oh, we went above and beyond. No, we did exactly what we should do. But unfortunately, in this league and in women's soccer in general, that is not the norm. Okay, best moments and highlights. Opening match home draw with Nashville.
Yeah, have to put it in there.
Yeah,
got to be up there.
I like your second. I like the one that's. I like the Nadia, just Nadia. I don't really. I can't. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That was
that goal against, especially the goal against Atlanta, was the goal. And Sam in that game too. But yeah, Nadia was fun. And once we lost, she who shall not be named, we needed a creative player in the midfield, and it all then fell on, not all, but it largely fell on Nadia's shoulders.
Yeah, if we know we did an offensive player and a defensive player, if we had like an outstanding revelation,
a midfield player.
No, yeah. I mean, I just enjoyed watching her play the entire season.
Yeah,
me too.
I mean, she looks like she is what a woman's midfielder looks like, and she played that way. I really enjoyed watching.
She looks like a player that can go pro.
Yeah,
I cannot say enough good things about Nadia as a player, as a person. I mean, like also like she's here in the United States, getting her college education, playing in the summer, doing it when there's a war in her country, and just like the ability to balance all of those things is really remarkable. And she's a special player and a special person.
And I hope we'll see her next summer.
Yeah. So I'll give her my soccer heart.
Yeah. There we go. Soccer blue heart.
Yes. She is. Yeah. She's everything.
Hell yeah. All right. Let's
talk.
She is
her, as they say, as the kids say.
There we go. I love that. One of us spends time on Twitter. So there's some things that we mentioned. We took some notes out from last year that we mentioned needed improvement. Let's talk about if they happened, because I actually think when going through this list and then re-listening to our podcast from last year and prep for this one, I think we actually did make some real improvements off the field. Mostly, but okay. So something that I know Jim and I think both mentioned in different reviews last season, but the stream needed some real improvement. Needed improvement on the men's side, but especially on the women's side last year. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the women's stream this year?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I didn't watch our stream that much because I was there, but when I went back and reviewed what I did see, it was a vast improvement over last year.
Could not agree more.
I can't say enough good things about having a regular voice of CFC.
Bingo.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Bingo. Yeah. Shout out Gabe. It is so good to have a regular voice. Someone that also not only the regular voice is a piece of it. We've had a regular voice before, but we haven't had a professional that did it every game. And that's no slight to Simon or anybody else who's did it. Like
absolutely not.
They were great but now as a professional club, having somebody that this is their profession, right? He is a professional sports announcer, and you feel that and you see that and you hear that. And I love it. And yeah, his preparation for the game, like the consistent voice, the consistent quality of presentation, I loved it. And that was just like one piece of the stream. I do think we made real progress overall on the stream. It's not perfect, but overall for both teams. And then I think the women's team mostly caught up to the men's team on the stream quality. It's kind of my thought.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sure.
And that was something that just needed to happen. And so shout out to Darrell and everybody in the front office has been working on that. Coaching staff. So literally word for word, I'll read what I wrote last year. Love Jazz, but need purely an assistant coach and not just a player assistant. If she takes a housing spot, that's cool with me. This is referring to Jazz or referring to an assistant coach. But either way, you need somebody that isn't a player as an assistant coach. And I also said, and this wasn't just me, this was our notes, we needed a regular goalkeeping coach that's not Jordan. For the love of God, he's got enough to do. And he was there 2 days a week last year. And so we had two premonitions that we had suggested last year. We said, we need a goalkeeper coach and we need an assistant coach. Matthew and I kind of went back and forth, excuse me, I'm sorry, on whether we needed an assistant and a goalkeeping coach. I was of the opinion that I was okay with one step forward, meaning a full-time assistant that could also do some goalkeeping duties. And I pitched Tommy Salsa for that role. Or a Juan Hernandez and then go get another goalkeeping coach as well. Also, side note, Juan Hernandez actually has some goalkeeping coaching experience, so he could have done both. But what we did in the end is we went out and got a full-time assistant in Juan Hernandez. Maybe not full-time, maybe the wrong word, because he's also working 6 other jobs. Yeah. But we had an assistant from season beginning to season end to help Randy, to make it so it didn't all fall on Randy's shoulders. And I think you really saw that. You felt that this year. But also towards the middle of the season, guess who showed up as goalkeeping coach?
Tommy Salsa.
And I want to shout out the front office, Davis, whoever, Randy, whoever helped make those decisions and get that done. I think that was you have to learn from your mistakes. You have to learn from the things that you can do better. And I think that was a clear chance to make an upgrade. And it was not free, right? People don't work for free. I don't know what Juan and Tommy got paid, but like if they were working for free, it certainly won't be free forever. And whatever commitments they had to make to those guys to get our team more support was not only worth it, but it was the right thing to do. And I'm really happy they did that.
Absolutely.
Did you guys have any coaching things to add?
No. I mean, we talked about this a couple off seasons ago, how the men's first team needed an actual full-time assistant to help the head coach. And credit to them, that's something they went out and did. And then we talked about it again in the offseason for the women's team. Like, you need an actual assistant coach that's not a player to do these things. And a goalkeeping coach, like, as an addition, would be great. And shout out and credit.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, it took a little bit of time. I think there's a reason why it took a little bit of time to bring Tommy on. But hopefully that's something that continues in the coming seasons.
And if you remember when we were in the NPSL, we sometimes had a goalkeeper coach. Usually by the end of it, we had Jordan. And we sometimes had an assistant coach and sometimes didn't. And sometimes we had 2 assistants. But we always had some support for Bill. And I think they rectified that and they got some support for Randy. And I'm just really happy to see that. Housing spots. Last season, we had 10. And Matthew and I both thought that wasn't enough. And I think you guys actually talked about it on your podcast as well, that you guys did together. This year, we think it was 14, right?
I forget it, honestly, if it was 12 or 14.
So what we had said, it was that we thought we wanted to see 14. We wanted to see a reasonable number of...
I think it was 12. It ended up being 12.
It ended up 12, okay. So basically, we said that we wanted to see the local player be the fill-in or starter, but the round out the numbers, but you wanted to see enough housing spots that you could go get players like Nadia.
Like Katie.
And I was going to say, you can take a shot on somebody like Grace Barker Roberts, who's coming in hurt and unfortunately didn't play a ton of minutes. But if you only have 6 housing spots or 8 housing spots, last season we had 10 as an example, but if you only have 6 or 8, and that's one thing the first iteration of CFC women did not have was many housing spots, you can never take any chances on players that are, and if you can't take any chances, you don't have the same upside play. So I'm really happy to see whatever it was, the commitment was substantial and significant, and every one of those spots cost money, and I'm really glad we made those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still, assuming I'm correct in that it was 12 this year, I'd love to see 14. I'd love to continue to take that next step. The market is, I mean, if you think back to the men's and PSL times, I think we had
20 or
times
so.
like 20, even 24 guys in housing. The market dynamic is a little bit different because there just weren't as many competitive for our league local domestic, just like local players. Whereas on the women's side, and spoiler alert, I will talk about and we need to take another step forward when it comes to the on-field product. But there are more local players or more local women's players, and So, okay, you don't need necessarily just to spend money. But I do think adding a couple more housing spots next year is still the right thing to do. We need depth. You could see it with certain players getting injured, maybe being unavailable, having life, get in the way of amateur soccer, which is no shot at them at all. Like these are things that happen. We need to be able to. We need to be able to slot players straight in, and high quality ones. So, more housing spots is better.
We had the roster thing listed here from last season, and we said another season of 1-1-6 is not acceptable. This season went 3-2-3. Is it an improvement? Sure. We said the team must be better. We need more housing spots, better recruitment, and we need to leverage partnerships with FC Alliance and Wolfsburg.
So it turns out we got a player from the FC Alliance Academy. Mm-hmm. Granted, it's Brady Livingston. Granted, she's been really actually training with the CFC Academy, just like choosing CFC over FC Alliance for her regular academy stuff. It gets a little bit harder to leverage your partnership with FC Alliance
when they have a team.
When they have 865 Alliance, and you know what? Like, God bless them. Okay, like no big deal. That's just going to be one of them things. But even if you take them aside, I would still like to see us find a way to take a step with Wolfsburg. I would like to think that that they've got their eyes on a promising rising senior in college, and with designs on signing them after their college eligibility is expired, and that summer before they want them to come to play in Chattanooga and get a taste of what it's going to be like. Potentially to play in Germany. And I don't know if that's realistic or not, but that's my hope. That's my goal. I want to see more, and whether it's with Wolfsburg or really, frankly, anyone, I don't give a damn. Like, I want to see more players like Katie Johnson, mm-hmm. who are play in college here, and then maybe play a summer in the WPSL and sign a contract and turn pro. And she's off to Lille in France.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about her for a second. On our podcast, she let slip that she was going somewhere, but then she wouldn't say where.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
Lille, Division I France.
It's pretty good.
It is.
It's pretty good.
It is.
And with the announcement, the new video game formerly known as FIFA, EA Sports FC, they will now have 5 women's leagues. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how exactly they're going to be available or whatever, but like there will be 5 women's leagues in the game, first divisions in England and in Germany and in Spain, in WSL, and then in France.
So are you saying that Katie's about to be in FIFA?
Katie Johnson is about to be in FIFA.
Let's go.
Well, the new name for it, of course. And by the way, she's not the only former CFC player.
Shout out Cosette Morche.
Cosette Morche, who's now at Montpellier.
Oh, she is? I didn't know.
She moved to Montpellier from Valencia. Yeah.
That's newly promoted Lille. So like they were a really good Ligue 2 team last year. So we'll see what they're going to do in Ligue 1.
Very, very exciting. And I would like to see, as Matthew said, more of those players, more players that come here and then make that jump to pro. And I think that path as well, being able to point to what Katie did and say, look what she did here. Look at the opportunity that she then got after that. I think that is a proof of concept for some players.
And while I want to see this happen, snap my fingers overnight, I recognize that's not always reality, because players need to take their experiences back to their college teams and to their friends, and coaches that are very influential in how this is done need to also hear about it from their own players and hear about it mm-hmm. from just other players in the conference when the coaches are all getting together in preseason meetings and setting the schedule and stuff like that. It sometimes takes time for for really the word to get out of, oh, this is a place you send players. And I think it's worth noting, like, the USL world is going to sell the W League as being overall a better place for competitive games than WPSL. And I think that's fair. I don't think there's any criticism with that. But as we've seen with Charlotte Eagles and Nashville Rhythm, like there is some serious quality at the top end of the WPSL. And it turns out, even mid-table teams in the conference like us. And I think, being a destination, being a place where players are going to be well coached, well treated, and have the opportunity and the platform to be able to springboard to something else is incredibly important. And hopefully 2 years now of experiences will do some really serious, solid recruiting for us heading into the 2024 season.
Hell yeah. Something we also pointed out, Matthew, I think this was one of your things. At minimum for 2023, you wanted to see an intra-squad scrimmage before any league games. Ideally, a preseason match with another squad in our area. You said at Asheville City. And then further into the future, a weekend recruiting tool, similar to how we had in 2017 and 2018 in the NPSL. Maybe you play Racing Louisville. Maybe you play another pro team. Maybe you play a big amateur team. But if they have the ability to play earlier on in the year. But you have that weekend, kind of like we played Atlanta United and we played Dallas and whatever else. Talk to me about your expectations for last year and where they met.
So we did have a preseason inter-squad scrimmage. Unfortunately, it was not open to the public. There was a friendly match played during the regular practice time, also not open to the public. And I do know that they were working on trying to find that kind of weekend recruiting preseason game with somebody, and it just didn't work out, which sometimes happens. So I guess. It's good. It's good that the players had extra opportunities to play a game, even if there weren't fans there. That's still good. I hope in the future that we can find a way to, and I realize it's difficult because the WPSL season, like the NPSL season, starts really quick. We did not have our full complement of roster available for even that first game. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to have the weekend before, for example, a inter-squad scrimmage that you invite, fans out to, and you do all those things because you may not have enough for 2 freaking teams. I get that, and I don't want to take anything away from that, but I do think it's, if it's possible to not play that first weekend, to be able to do an inter-squad scrimmage game, that'd be really awesome.
I think it'd be cool. Sorry to cut you off. It'd be cool to do a U18 academy team, scrimmage with the team, or local, or like a high school,
like the Dalton All Stars used to do.
Yeah, like a high school all star. I mean, we've got some really good women's teams in the area as well, high school teams that I think would be really cool. Plus, we might discover somebody in that wants to come up and play a summer. So.
Yeah, I just want to see something that continues to help set us apart.
Yep.
And maybe one day in the future. Obviously, I think you look at this year's team, and this year's team's not ready to host Racing Louisville in a friendly, right? We've got a little bit of a ways to go to get there, but something that's interesting, something that is exciting. Hopefully we can get to that point, and hopefully we can take a step towards it next year.
Let's move into what improvements we want to see for 2024. We've got a few miscellaneous topics. We've got listener questions, and then we've got our grades our overall grades for the season, off the field and on the field. Give a number out of 10, or as Jim likes to do, give a letter grade.
Letter grade, yeah.
Okay,
Academics.
So best things the CFC got right. We've mentioned a few things. I'll mention something kind of in the vein of what do we want to see for next year. I want to see continue the social media and graphics. They did a photo shoot at the beginning of the season with players, with jerseys, with the men's and women's teams, and the graphics were for the double headers had a men's player and a women's player. The graphics for the women's games had women's players in jerseys. Well done graphics. I loved that. That felt very professional. It felt very equal across the teams, and what do we always like get annoyed at when it feels like the effort isn't equal. And on that front, the presentation felt very equal to me, and I was very, very happy about that. So social media and graphics was good. So I want to see more of that next year. I'll say I think the obvious thing, I want to join the Nashville and Charlotte Eagles level of competitiveness.
Cosign.
Like
you want to win, you want to be in the semifinal or final nationally.
Yes.
Well, at least you're not.
I want to be
the premier destination.
I want to be the premier destination for women's soccer in the United States, women's amateur soccer in the United States of America.
No, just women's
But
soccer.
I also want to be
bingo.
I mean, let's get a WPSL team. Let's go. I also want to. I just want to be like at the top of our competitive at the top of our conference. And if that means we have to go through fucking Nashville Rhythm, who's one of the best teams in the country, like, okay, like that's the standard though.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so
that's and by the way, that's where we were as a men's amateur team.
Yeah.
We went to 4 fucking finals.
I don't want to talk.
Let's not talk about us in those finals. But we went to we were one of those teams. We were always there. So and that's where we need to that's where we need to go.
I think I'm really glad we didn't do this review a week after the season ended on our end, because I think my review, and we'll get to our season grades at the end and whatever else, but my review would have been far more negative on the field. And it's not like it's the most positive number, spoiler alert, on the field, but after seeing Charlotte Eagles go all the way and win it all, after seeing Nashville be one of the best teams in the league 2 years in a row, it gives a little, I think, more perspective in the level that we have to reach. Do I think we need to get there? And I think we need to be in that, maybe at least competitive with them next year? Yes, I do. But maybe my goal of this year, of last year being that, and then this year, like we have to be that, wasn't fair. Because I think this year on the field, we essentially had the year that we would have hoped for, or I would have hoped for last year.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And last year just got, because of the truncated nature of the preseason, where Randy put together the team in 4.5 minutes was your quote from last year. It's just that's how it worked, and not to relitigate that, but that's what happened. And so this was the first real full off season, and I wanted this year, my own personal desires and goals for this team was that this was the season that we broke out, and we kind of did, but we also kind of didn't. But now looking at that, we had 2 of the best teams in the country in our conference. It gives a little perspective to be like, okay, well, if you take there was a reasonable chance that those 2 teams were not in our conference geographically if we weren't there, and then suddenly we're just in the top little few of our conference. We weren't as good as, but we were competitive with kind of everybody for most of the season. It's like, well, then we're close. We're way off of Nashville right now. We're way off of Charlotte. But I'm willing to give a little more time to get there than I was 6 weeks ago.
If you think about it,
whatever time it was.
You've got Nashville, you've got Charlotte, you've got Women's Football Club of Charlotte, who is one step below. You've got Knoxville, one step below Nashville. You've got this Georgia Impact, Georgia whatever they're called.
Might be good, might not be. Who knows?
They're decent. They're at least in the. I would say they're at least in the Knoxville and Women's Football Club of Charlotte sphere, or maybe even that sort of sometimes includes our sphere. The schedule is just really quirky for them, and so if they played our schedule, how would they have fared? I think they would have been knocked down because most teams got Birmingham, Birmingham Soda City level games twice. They got it 3 times? I think we don't need to relitigate that too much, but I do think they would have come down closer to our tier. But even so, that's a strong conference, and in an ideal world, if you just take the Georgia teams, Birmingham, and then the Tennessee teams, I think reasonably the goal is we need to be punching up against. We need to separate Knoxville and Nashville, and I dare I say split them. Assuming Nashville's still going to be the best fucking team or whatever. Yeah, we need to be ahead of Knoxville.
Well, I think we're right at. I really do. I think we were right at Knoxville. I know that. I mean, I don't think they were a tier above us. I mean,
I do.
I watched both games, and for the second half of both games, I mean, that home game they had two long balls. And that was it. That was it. We were the better team in the second half.
Yeah, but
so I don't think the difference between us and Knoxville is very much.
I agree with that. I think they were a half step better than us. I don't think they were a full step. I think they were just slightly better.
Yeah, I think okay, maybe if we played them 10 times, maybe it's 6-4. Or I
agree with that.
I don't think they're that much better than us. Nashville, on their day, yes, they're a rung or two above, and so are the Eagles.
So I want, but what I'm saying here is like I want. Next
you want to be
year's
clearly
team
better than Knoxville,
to be better than Knoxville, and to give ourselves a puncher's chance against Nashville.
So I'll put
and then you just kind of small sample size goes where small sample size will go.
Yeah.
So we need the playoff format not to suck, and that is incumbent on the NPSL or dependent on the WPSL. Excuse me, NPSL, WPSL, same shit, different logo, and so that is probably going to fuck us. But I want to host a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to host a playoff game, realistically, for me to set that goal, that means there needs to be at least four playoff teams, and so there's 2 hosts. Or we just need the whole thing to be hosted, I guess, with us. But I don't know if I would count that. Or maybe I would. I don't know. But point being is I want to host a playoff game next year. And I also want to break 2K on the fans. And unfortunately, we don't fudge numbers at all anymore. And so like that 1,700 turning into 2,300 is just not happening. And I wish that I didn't believe this, but I now believe that we just need a playoff game. We need to build some excitement. We need to win. We need some standalone women's games. We need fuck these double headers. But we need.
By the way, fuck Bob Freeland for making that second doubleheader.
Amen. But I don't know. I don't know that we're going to break 2K realistically without a playoff game. But I think we could definitely break 2,000 fans if we got a playoff game, because I think you'd get a little lead up, and then people love a winner. You could break 3K for a playoff game potentially, because people get excited. So I want to break that. I want to get more butts in seats, which is something you said. 2K playoff game was what I added there. And then we need to host a playoff game in any case. We need an additional home game. And we need a game to reward the community at the surround CFC for the support and whatever else, and that because that's a big celebration, right? And we need to be able to give these players like a big atmosphere and a big like reward for their season, and not having a playoff game or sneaking into a playoff like we did last year when we were, not very good.
Right.
Was a bummer.
Yeah. So I think for us on this podcast, the ask is in the WPSL meetings, especially the conference meetings, we need a conference playoff. And the reason why I say that is it gives us the best chance of having a playoff game. Hopefully I don't know if it's going to be top 4 with 6 teams or something like that, but like figure out something, like do a little playoffs, 2 versus 3. Then you play the number 1 seed.
Sure, however.
Something like that. Kind of like how it's supposed to be.
We could just go be the number 1 seed.
That's fine too. The reason why I say that, though, is traditionally the WPSL South region rotates these South region playoffs from conference to conference. So Nashville got to host the South region playoffs, not because they were declared the best South region team. It was just the Southeast turn to host. And as the Southeast representative, although there were 2 in the end, but as the official Southeast representative, they were the ones that got to host the South region playoffs. Now,
interesting.
Charlotte Eagles makes the playoffs because FC fucking Dallas didn't want to travel, and nobody else apparently in that conference wanted to travel. So they just gave it to Charlotte Eagles,
who won the whole thing.
Willing to travel and then go winning the whole thing. So I guess that's the ask from my side is I think a little conference playoffs is the best way to get a home playoff game, unless we just go out and, even if we go out and win the thing and it's just the 1 seed advances,
might not get a playoff game.
Playoffs probably going to be in another region.
Fair.
Or another conference.
Goal of the season.
Nadia.
No, Nadia. That's not a question.
I think it's a clean sweep. But just to be different, I'm going to go with Sam's goal. Same game. Just add a little flavor.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, those 2 goals, man. Those 2 goals. But Nadia's was, yeah. Player of the year. Who was your overall player of the year. This is probably your chance, Jim, to just say Nadia if that's your player of the year.
Yeah, she was just a joy to watch. So yeah, I'll give it to her. Yeah, I mean it's if you go by stats, it's still probably Summer, but I'll Nadia. She gets the Blue Heart Award.
The Blue Heart Award.
Yeah.
Matthew, who gets your Blue Heart Award?
Honestly, I think that's a fair. I think that's a fair shout. I think either her or Katie were the kind of the heartbeat of the team.
Yeah, Katie was the engine
going both ways. I think those are. I mean, 10 goal contributions is hard to ignore from Summer.
Yeah.
You know what? So you went with Nadia.
Yeah.
I'll go with Summer.
And I'll go with Katie.
Perfect.
I think that, a lot of stuff didn't show up on the stat line for Katie. But I think
absolutely.
she was such a game changer and difference maker when she was in. Anytime she would come out, which she didn't sub a lot, but whenever she would come out, we were flatter. We were less good. We were less athletic. We were less technical. We were just less good. And yeah, she was such a game changer. And she was like the thing that started the danger. Remember Juan Hernandez back in the NPSL days where like if he wasn't the pass before the pass or the pass that scored the assist, we didn't score. That I felt like that was Katie for large portions of the season. Moment of the season. What was the best moment of the season?
7th goal versus Soda City.
Love
I
it.
mean, like not really, but like it's just such
no,
a.
that's your moment. That's for sure your
it's
moment.
just for sure my moment.
Jim?
I'm just at the second goal in the Nashville game.
I was going to say same thing. The Croissant St. Louis second goal.
I was if I had to choose like something that wasn't extremely personal just for me, it would have been that.
Yeah.
Because that moment is 2-2 draw against Nashville. Like that moment kind of encapsulates where I think we all want to be, which is on the same level as Nashville, like where they are as a club. Like that's where I want to be.
I agree with Jim. It's objectively that's the one. I'll just to say a different one. I'm going to say the release and relief of the Nadia banger goal. Because like it felt like, oh no, we're not gonna score against this stupid team that's not very good, and then she just like pulls up from, just unbelievable, pulls out that goal out of nowhere. We've already talked about the return of Tommy Salsa, and that's just wonderful. By the way, just to have him back.
Yeah,
I love him, and I heard from several of the girls like it's so good, it's so cool to have Tom Halsell here, and we're like, who? And then we had to explain Tommy Salsa. But they were like, yeah, he's great. And we were like, yeah, we know. Like, he's a CFC legend. So it's just really, really cool. And then Juan as an assistant was just such a highlight, I think, for me. All right. You two are going to have to explain this question to me. I have the first listener question, and sorry, listeners.
Oh, no, we're not doing that one.
No, we're not doing that question.
Okay, well, good. You don't have to explain a thing that I don't understand. That's better for me. Does the WPSL still feel like the right fit for this team? And sorry, you guys, we don't have whoever asked these questions. To be real, they're probably all dudes, but guys or gals. But does the WPSL still feel right as a right fit for this team, or does a league move for the women seem to be on the horizon soon as well? Just as the rumors of, other pro leagues and whatever else.
Wow, you really stepped around that one.
Other pro women's leagues.
That's true. Yes.
Okay, so the answer to this is no. I don't think there's any movement. Number one,
UWS, W League. Those are your only two choices that are non-pro.
Yeah.
Number one,
Right.
we're territory locked out of the W League.
Right. And that was another question here. So if somebody doesn't know, it's USL.
It's the next question. So does the USL W League have territory rights?
Does it start with USL? If it starts with USL, they're territory rights.
Well said, Jim.
Now, like UWS exists, and I think it's truly like region by region in terms of competitiveness, in terms of like organization, a lot like the NPSL, in that kind of way. Like it's as good as like your 5 teams around you or so want it to be. And the UWS just doesn't have a presence in the Southeast.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Like it tried, but it just didn't get there. And I frankly don't even know if they were able to even cobble together those like 2 Pensacola teams and 1 random Atlanta team into anything more than that. So the answer is no. And frankly, like we've got a ways to go in terms of competitiveness, I think, before we even really need to consider actually both competitiveness and off the field fan support and like just the general like commercial side of soccer before there's even a reason to have this conversation.
Yeah, to consider the various pro leagues.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, number one, we'll be territory locked out of one of them. And you know, WPSL does have designs for a women's, I think, Division 3 pro league. It's something I'll be paying attention to, but it's still a couple years away. And we're definitely a couple of years, probably more than a couple of years away from even like being able to have that conversation. But that starts with the pro angle, at least. That starts with fan support and being able to being able to do it. So I think we're a ways off.
I want to emphasize one point here too for the WPSL. The road trips are short. We only had 1 overnight trip this year. And I think we all have our qualms with the schedule, but we probably should have had 2 overnight trips. That is very good for an amateur women's team. That is very good for being able to field players who are working full-time. And it is very good for the monetary side of it and the fan travel side of it, which is you don't have high travel costs. So the WPSL also fits us very well there. Mm-hmm. What was the deal with players that left after the first game?
Oh, God.
You want me to take this one?
No, I'll do it. So we had a player decide to go home, for whatever reason, and I'm not going to get in the weeds of it. But a player decided they wanted to go home, and unfortunately, another player felt like that was her ride, that was who she came with, that was her roommate. Felt like she also had to go.
Yep.
And it was just unfortunate, and that's kind of. That's the situation.
If you commit your summer to CFC and you just decide you're no longer committed because you whatever, that's how you become she who shall not be named. Given that the Southeast Conference has some of the best players in amateur women's soccer, at least in the WPSL, that part I added, because this says in women's soccer, period. I don't know if I agree with that. In the WPSL, certainly. We just talked about the 2 teams and whatever else. How do we possibly compete?
Get better players.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it starts with recruiting.
Yeah, I think it's
always be recruiting.
That's right. It's always I mean, I think
as an Alabama football fan over there, always be recruiting.
It goes back to creating an atmosphere, being the team that is on the tip of the tongue of every coach. Like, and being known for a good place for young women to come, during their summer to play. I mean, it's got to be building that reputation, and so you can attract the players that you want to attract.
I think too often in women's soccer so far, and then men's soccer had this problem at a certain point, but women's soccer is not a super accustomed to having fans and having all those things. And one of the coolest parts of that, like the cool byproduct of that, is that when these players realize that there are fans that support them, we get like little things where somebody will say like, yeah, the players ask like, are they really going to come on the road? Right. Like, they're going to come to every game?
Yeah.
Like that is something that is taken for granted on the men's side. And I'm not shitting on them. I'm just like, it's taken for granted. Like, oh yeah, it's normal for this. And on the women's side, I think it's not emphasized as much because it's not expected. And one thing I think that's going to happen as we go forward, number one, we have to build a core of players that come back every year and that recruit their friends. I think you saw it this year. You saw several players, and I won't go through who they are, but and not to get too in the weeds about individual players. We had several players that came here in part because other players recruited them to come here. Mm-hmm. They played with other players, and they were upgrades on last year. Mm-hmm. And next year, you need more of that. That's the first piece. You need girls telling their teammates. You need them telling the people they played with on a regional team, people that played ODP with, people. You need the word of mouth to, hey,
Right.
this team took care of, as you just pointed out.
Yeah.
And then you need an ambitious recruiting program that puts together a big winning season. So you need one big winning season, because I think the thing that's currently dominating women's soccer, as far as I can tell, on the amateur side, and I think this happens on the men's side, it's just the fan element. I think we had more of an advantage there because more guys looked at it and said, oh, I want to play in front of fans, is that once you get a team that wins, I mean, look at Nashville. When you win, like, it makes it's all about winning. And they don't really care. They don't seem to care what's going on otherwise. And I think what we need is one good winning season, one like where we're a powerhouse, and then
the floodgates to open,
and then everyone goes. Not only is that a cool place to play, but look at the chance to win. And I think that's what's currently missing. We'll see what going into next year, because we were so bad last year on the field. And I think this year was probably harder to recruit because of that. And I'm hopeful, I don't know if I'm optimistic, but I'm hopeful that that's kind of the next evolution. That next year, it's like, hey, look at all these, look at how good we were. Look at how close we were. Now, like, let's get those. Because we don't have this academy. Another way you can do it is have an academy that brings in, we have a solid, like, we had players that played this year out of our academy, and we were a good team. But Women's Football Club of, 865 Alliance had multiple players that were academy players that were like freshmen that were game changers against us.
I'm talking about like National Player of the Year, like game changers.
And if we're not going to get that out of our academy, we got to get that out of recruiting. So that's how we compete, is that we build a winning culture on top of because we're doing everything else mostly right. We have more support than anybody else. We want to see even more, but we have more support than anybody else. Off the field, everybody's taken care of as well or better than anywhere else. So now we got to get to that next step. That's my thought on it.
It's not the X. What they say in college recruiting. It's not the X's and O's. It's the Jimmy and Joes. So I don't know what the women's equivalent of that is, but it's recruitment. It's recruiting the players, and winning comes from getting the best. I mean, it's like it may be a little bit of a chicken and the egg kind of thing,
for sure.
But you got to get the players here to win, and then the winning begets more winning.
100%, and that's why. I don't think we have a predictions segment here, but if we did, one thing I'd want to see is like next year we have to make that big run, not just because of we want to win, but because if we're gonna get to where we want to get, like you said, we have to start winning. Why was depth an issue as the season wore on?
Our good players got hurt.
Yeah.
I think
that's a crude way of putting it, but like
I don't think it's just that our good players got hurt, because I think that was also true. I think we were particularly thin in one position.
Midfield.
The 6 in particular. We essentially lost 2 starting midfielders, and she who shall not be named, and then Samantha Maudsley. And when we lost those 2 players, we're down 2 starters. And it's just tough to fill that. But Samantha really just tied everything together, and we just weren't able to excel after that.
Yeah.
And then it was all the other pieces too. I think that is just a risk you have whenever you build a team.
Yeah.
I'm not even mad or critical of how the team was built, because I think I think they built a really good midfield looking back on it. And then we lost a player to injury, and we lost a player to circumstance.
And think about like Grace we brought in who was injured coming in. We were hoping that she was going to be a big time player for us going into the latter half of the season. Obviously, her injury issues just like it just meant that she wasn't as available and wasn't like match ready yet. And like that's a player in housing, so that's a bummer. Like and if that happens a couple of times, we'll throw Maudsley into it. Although that was getting hurt in the middle of the season. When your housing spot players have some injuries, it's just real tough. Like it's just real tough.
So we have a prediction on returners or retirees. I'd actually like to stay away from that question out of respect for not getting stuck in the weeds of like, do I want this player back? Do I not want this player back?
That's fair.
But I do want to. The second part of this question was potential player poachings. And I'm just going to point out, I would like Yuki Watari to come do the Cristiano Ronaldo celebration for us instead of against us, and I don't care about anything else. About her, about who she brings with her, who she doesn't. Like, I would love to have a player because the biggest difference between us and Nashville was her.
Yeah.
Like Nashville was like a little, just a smidge above us all over the field, but not like way above us. Just like kind of like we were pretty similar.
When we were full strength.
When we were full strength and they were full strength, we were kind of similar teams. But Yuki was a step above everybody. I mean, she scored two goals in the first game. Mm-hmm. She was the source of danger that whole game. I mean, she is an absolute game changer, and I want an absolute game changer. And she is the one from this conference that I am familiar with and that I would like.
Well, there's another player on that team, and I cannot remember her name. Small Asian.
Japanese national team player, I think, as well. I think they're both. Yeah. I actually don't. Yuki's Brazilian and Japanese. I actually don't think she has any national team.
So I can't remember her name, but I'd be fine with her. On the
so there's a bunch of players on that team that I would take. Sure. I mean, there's if anybody's listening, I think we should take about 10 players off that team and then fill in with a bunch of our players, and then bada boom, bada bing, you got the dream squad. But yeah, I do think that one of the best chances for us to get players who, like, quote unquote get it, who maybe not know what Chattanooga's about, but at least have been exposed to it and go like, I want to play there. Now that we've been better on the field and they've seen 2 years in a row, or potentially have had the chance to see 2 years in a row, maybe we'll get some player poaching from within the Southeastern Conference.
I want to see us recruit D1 better. We made a big stride there with a lot of players from
Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, Louisiana Monroe. Frankly, a lot of that had to do with
Will Roberts,
who that coach is over there.
Yeah.
Someone who had the CFC experience, even if it was just for 1 year.
It shows you what the CFC experience gives you, though, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I want to see. Hopefully, we get a little bit more D1 talent coming in, because at the men's game, especially with the influx of international players, it doesn't necessarily matter as much. I think at the women's game, it really does, and that's one element I want to see more of in the future.
I can't believe he didn't say to poach that Grumpy Smurf.
I mean, like,
I almost said that. So she's young, and assuming like Caroline doesn't come back and whatever else, I would love to see Grumpy Smurf in the conversation. I will echo the D1 player thing. The one thing that concerns me about that is the constant problem of why do these teams not want to play in the playoffs? Because some of them lose their players, not just because they don't want to travel. I worry about that thing, but D1 women's soccer in this country is the place where all the best players in the world play. Mm-hmm. That is going to change as like these academies all over the world get better, but we should be one of the premier destinations. And I realize because the USLW League is well established and because there are professional teams with second teams there and whatever else, it makes it a little bit harder. And there are WPSL teams that are second teams, but we really should have some serious D1 talent. And hopefully this year, I mean, we had some D1 players. Hopefully this year is just the start of that. And
right.
I also don't think that the only talent is in, because I mean, you look at Nadia Ivanchenko, who is very talented, not playing D1. And then you look at Katie Johnson, was very talented playing D1. There are many, that's just two players,
but
there are
examples.
I think you can mix the two.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention on the like returners, retirees, that kind of thing is, and why, in addition to, we don't really speculate about individual players, it's the beginning of August. A lot of life is going to happen for someone who's going to be asked to play amateur soccer next summer. That could be getting a job and struggling with the reality of, like, how do you manage a full-time job and a second job that you don't get paid for playing soccer still.
Sure.
It could be like moving away for a job. Now, we might be the beneficiaries of someone moving to Chattanooga for their employment and being like, I want to play soccer. Like, I want to give it another year, maybe whatever.
Do you think Yuki Watari wants to be a fitness influencer also in Chattanooga? If you look up her Instagram, she's an aspiring fitness influencer.
And so, like, there's just so much life that still has to happen between now and, November, December, February, January, February, like when some of this stuff starts happening. And by the way, like, these things are, we always used to beg the club for a roster in the NPSL days. And I mean, beg, just to get, like,
I would tweet every day when I woke up at 4 a.m.
If we had a friendly on a weekend, like, Monday before, like, can we get a roster? Like, surely. And the more we did that, the more annoyed everyone else got. And they finally let us in on like kind of like a little bit inside
how
baseball.
hard it is.
And they were basically saying like, this is the roster on Wednesday for the Saturday game, but also just be prepared for it to change. Like up until Friday night. And when I remember in 2018, we lost between like late April to or March or whenever like kind of rosters get kind of locked in. We lost like 4 starters in like the weeks, 6 weeks or so leading up to that NPSL season. 4 projected starters due to just circumstances. And it's just so hard to judge. It's just so hard to predict an amateur sport. And that's just another reason why we're not gonna go there.
Jim, I have a very difficult question for you. Can we schedule an entire season of Birmingham and Soda Cities, please?
I mean, no, but we wouldn't want to anyway. So
it'd be fun for one season.
I guess until you got to the playoffs and actually played somebody with a beating heart. So,
any chance for a friendly or two to pad out the season a little more?
Blaze.
Any chance? Yes, there's a chance.
I think that's got to be on CFC's goals for next year.
Yeah,
they're going to want more home dates. It's really tough to fit them in, and it's really tough to find opponents to play. But as long as they're not losing money on games, so like fans have to show up. But as long as they're opening the door, whatever the open door break even point is, like they're going to want more home dates. And if they're losing, that's a problem for the community. If they're losing money on every game. Oh, hi, Mix.
Hey, buddy.
Any players you thought played better than expected? So I'm gonna rephrase that a little bit. Who was your surprise of the season? Your player that you just didn't have expectations for, or that you were like, holy shit, this player rules.
I think I'll start with just like Avery Catlick goes in that category because she was a good player. She was an important player for us last year, but she went like a full step above, and part of that was college too. But she was an integral part of this team for. So I would choose her as a returning player. I think it's a little harder for, and we talked about this in the roster preview pod before the season started. Some of these players that came in, you're looking at like their kind of their CV, their resume. And that only tells you so much. You need to actually like see some film, see them in the environment, and it just a lot of women's players don't have a YouTube highlight package, for example, and highlights don't tell you everything. I'm acutely aware of that, but like it's something. It's something that you can just see. Like people that understand the game can look at highlights. And quickly be able to determine, okay, like rough level, is there rough level of competition here? Okay, looking at it, we just don't have any evidence sometimes, and so I would say that.
Are you saying you didn't have enough information to make an informed opinion, therefore nobody surprised you,
or everyone surprised me? I mean, like think about the contributions that Croissant or Katie Johnson or Nadia had, Maudsley. I mean, the list goes on. These players that came in and you saw them on paper and then you saw them in real life and what they were able to do. And, I think that was surprising to just like learn, like it's the exciting part of when new players come into your team, pro or amateur, like finally being able to watch them and see what they can do. Like it was exciting to watch Katie Johnson, especially being so close to her for that first half of that first game, to watch her play.
She was just such a better player up close. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah. Just like it's exciting to watch a player like Anatoly on the men's side, or Aiden Bowers, who we saw with Cal United before that, like then actually playing for you. That's how I would take that question.
Jim, do you have somebody?
Well, I mean, watching Summer, just how she still has it, even. I think that was a delight, and then KD that first game. I mean, I can't say that they didn't meet expectations because I had no expectations for anyone, but yeah, watching her that first game, and of course, I've said it too many times. Just watching Nadia play.
I'm going to say Chris on because I saw the 4-time St. Lucian Player of the Year, and I was just kind of like, okay, like I just did not give that the credit that it deserved, and I couldn't really find highlights of hers that like were particularly impressive, and I just didn't have high expectations. And then she just kind of blew all my expectations out of the water, and she's deserves the accolades. And yeah, big fan. Is the 2023 comma, is the 2023 CFC Women Primary Navy Kit the best CFC kit of all time?
You mean this one?
The one on your, yeah, look at that. It's a good background.
I mean, like, maybe.
Yeah, it's it's really well. It's way up there.
Put that with white shorts and put it in the history books.
It's such a good kit. I mean, it really is.
I'm going to say no, but I'm going to say it's part of the best set of jerseys we've ever had, and it's not close.
Yeah.
I think there's too many other great jerseys. I actually don't think we have a clear number one anymore. I have a favorite, but I don't know if we have a clear number one.
What's your favorite?
The 2019 blue, light blue, wrong blue, with the rubberized patches. The 1 year of Inaria.
Yeah. God bless.
The light blue.
Those are some good kits. Until this season, that was the best set.
The light blue, the sky blue.
Yeah.
The navy, sky blue, orange. Bring back orange.
Yeah.
So, but
bring back bright orange.
But what you both said is true. I think it is in the conversation. I think it's a top five.
Definitely is.
I think it's a top five. And one of the hard parts is in this set of kits, there's like 3 of the top 5 ever, and we should do that at some point. Talk about which one's the best.
Off season.
Yeah, because we will be in here for 2 more hours.
Right.
Are we still associated with Wolfsburg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's still a
as far as I
partnership
know.
there.
Yeah.
This is not something that was asked, but I'm going to ask a follow-up on that. What do you guys want to see out of the Wolfsburg partnership? Pie in the sky, and then maybe a realistic.
Send us
base.
players.
Okay, pie in the sky.
If you're a great player coming out of the Wolfsburg Academy, and you decide to make your college choice in the United States, if you want to stay in the academy and do whatever, like great, fine. But if you're a Wolfsburg player, you come to the United States for college, especially if you want the college experience, you want the education, which is a big reason why like players come and leave their academy setups. Please direct them here.
Yep. Yeah, that would be one.
Like that'd be a start, you know. Like I want them to like send us players that they are evaluating. And like, you know, generally during the summer, like a coach or someone from the academy over there spends some time in Chattanooga, does a camp, maybe does a couple of camps, whatever. You know, every summer they come over and do some stuff. It would be really nice if they have a bunch of players they want to evaluate and just happen to have a coach over here doing a camp and can actually evaluate them in person. There's no substitute for that. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
I'll give you a pie in the sky one. To give you 2 pie in the sky ones. Friendly. With the Wolfsburg women's team. We've got to come a long way before we get there, but
they're like fucking best 4 teams in the world, man.
Yeah, and we're number 1. Number 1 most important massive club. So that's one pie in the sky, and the other piece would be pie in the sky. I'd love to see our women go over there to train with them at some point. And I would love that for the whole team, but maybe that is a couple players from here go over and spend a week training with the Wolfsburg first team. In part because they're looking at them, in part because it's part of the partnership. I would love to see that. I think that one's a little more doable. But yeah, there's 2 pie in the skies.
Yeah.
Predictions for how KD will do at Lille.
Fucking crush it.
I mean, it's Liga, the women's, and that's not. I mean, it's top 5 only because that's one of the top 5 men's leagues. So but she's on a newly promoted team. It's gonna be a leap up. So it's gonna be a jump up.
I'm gonna say it depends on what position she plays. If she is asked to be a wingback like she was this year in a 3-5-2, I think she'll do very well. I think if they ask her to be a left back, I don't know if she can handle the defensive work. And she's left-footed, so it's very possible they ask her to be a left back. If they want her to be the attacking winger on the left or the right side, I'm not saying she can't do it. I'm saying that's a different proposition, though. So I think it just depends where she's asked to play.
Outside, it's just hard. I know Lyon and that's about it in the women's.
One of the best teams in the world, if not the best team in the world.
So I know them, but I really don't know enough about the other teams. I just know that the team she's joining knocked it out of the park in the second division, like by a long shot. And so there was talent there. So it's going to be, but it's a jump up. I mean, it's going to be a jump up.
That reminds me, I need to add Katie and Cozy to the my FOP notifications.
Alerts, yeah. So somebody's got to keep track of how she does, because I want the check backs in. Anyone else we see going pro off this team?
I would think Nadia at some point. I think she has 1 year. What'd she say on our podcast? She has 1 year of eligibility left in college.
She has 2,
maybe 2. So like maybe hopefully we get her back for another summer before she has the opportunity to go pro. But I think she's one of those players that definitely could. The kind of question being, is it going to be? Would it be in the United States? Would it be back in Europe, where she would probably have more opportunities,
especially with a European passport?
Right. If I look at the rest of the squad, man, I think Maudsley's got some potential for it.
There were 2 players on this team,
and probably Croissant as well.
There were 2 players on this team that have played professional minutes before coming into this year.
Isn't one of them she who shall not be named?
Correct. The other one's Nadia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Grace Barker Roberts, who I don't know if it was like technically pro or she played kind of with a pro team, but so I do think Nadia. It's hard to project that. Also because
the women's pro game is changing rapidly. Not just in this country with the addition of the Super League, which is scheduled publicly, at least promoted to start in like August of 2024, which could be an interesting dynamic. Players playing a summer amateur schedule and then potentially getting picked up in the Super League, which would be a overall good development for women's soccer in this country, to have other avenues for professional soccer. But also the investment from European big traditional men's big European teams who are now pumping some money into their women's teams. And by the way, that's not just happening in Europe. That's happening in other places too. There's long-term plans for a Canadian women's professional league. You see the success of...
Well, they should probably get working on that so they don't get eliminated in the first round of the World Cup.
You see this the success of a team like Colombia in the Women's World Cup. They've got their own domestic league. The Mexican first division for women's football is starting to really come up now. There are a lot more avenues than there ever have been, and hopefully that means as CFC takes steps in terms of the amateur player side and the amateur recruitment side, hopefully that the opportunities in the women's professional game that are increasing gives more chances for CFC players while we're still an amateur club to then progress in their careers, which is a stated goal of us, and was on the men's side and is still as a professional team on the men's side. We want to see players move up and be the best they possibly can be. And at some point that does mean leaving CFC. And I think we want the same on the women's side too.
And Addie really impressed me. She's a rising junior, or is she a rising senior?
I don't remember.
I believe she's a rising senior.
Yeah. So I mean, she just when she did not get a lot of minutes, but when she was on the field, she looked every bit the part.
Someone like Sarah King, who, if I listening to our preview, I think might have been a freshman. If she's not, it's less impressive. But I think the age profile is actually the most important part of this question, because we had this year, unlike last year. Last year we had a lot of younger players, or a lot of we had a lot more. I think we had a lot more younger players. I have to go back and count that played a lot more minutes. I think this year we had a lot of fifth year or 1 year out of college players, or final year of eligibility players, and I think it's easier to say where they're going to arrive and harder to say where the players with 2 or 3 years left of eligibility, because they can really make that step. I agree with the Addie is a great.
Yeah, I mean, she's not even started her eligibility.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, Sure.
Yeah.
A lot more ceiling there. This is the last one of the listener questions. Is Findlay best suited for the women's team, or is there value in a currently non-existent and all completely hypothetical small Montague Park Stadium?
I do think that's something to. I do think that's the question that ultimately the ownership and the front office are going to have to really wrestle with, because you could also argue that a 20,000 seat football stadium is not truthfully what the men's pro first team needs in an ideal scenario. And if that's the case, given the disparity of attendance, which again I would like to see, become a little bit more even from men and to women, I think that would only intensify. I would love for CFC to play in a smaller, more intimate setting. Whatever it ends up being, and obviously there's a lot of emphasis being put on growth right now with Alton's hiring a CEO, 4 or 5 new jobs available. Come work for CFC.
Allegedly.
So, I think that's a long-term good question to ask. Obviously, we rent Findlay Stadium, and the economics of doing a women's team that gets right now less fan support than the men's makes a rental scenario a little bit more challenging, especially if we ever want to truly consider like the jump up to maybe pro women's soccer in whatever shape, form, or existence that might be one day. I think we're going to have to answer the question at some point in time of what our stadium solution is. And hopefully if it's a more intimate space in this hypothetical scenario in the future, then, maybe the having 1,500 fans at a women's game doesn't feel as empty as compared to 20,000 seats in Findlay Stadium. Yeah.
So finances aside, the current situation is not good for the men or the women. I mean, it's just for the exact reasons that Matt said. It needs to be a smaller, more intimate, fans on both sides, supporters behind a goal. Maybe I don't know. It needs to be. It needs to be that. It needs to be around 10,000. Maybe 10,000 at the most. To something like that, 7,500, 10,000. But setting that outside, if the men are in Findlay, the women need to be at Findlay.
Bingo. I agree with that, but the financial, I realize, I think you're also alluding to there are financial realities.
Sure.
And I don't know how to wrestle with those because I'm not the ones writing the checks. But man, if the men are at Findlay, I want to see the women at Findlay.
I mean, it's not great for the men either. So the pie in the sky absolute what I want is a smaller stadium for both teams.
Sure.
But wherever the men are, the women need to be.
Could not agree more. All right. Before we close this bad boy up, season grades. On the field, off the field, you can go letter grade, should go numbers. We'll convert we'll do some translation on Jim's. Matthew, why don't you lead us off?
Shit.
On the field, off the field, and actually and I forgot overall. Which combines the two. And by the way, Matthew proved last year math doesn't have to make sense because he did 2 of 10
that.
and 7 of 10 and then said 9 of 10.
Right. Yeah.
I did do that, didn't I?
You did, and the 2 plus 7 equals 9, and that's not how that works.
That's not how averaging works. Yeah.
It does if your name's Matthew.
I make my own rules. Let's start on the field. We were 6th place in the table out of 9. I'm going to give us credit where credit is not deserved, but I'm going to give us credit for that 7-goal win over Soda City. And if the plan had gone perfectly and a Women's Football Club of Charlotte did their fucking job, we would have been squarely mid-table in that scenario. So with that in mind, I'm going to give us a 5 out of 10 on the field. It was, we were a fucking mid-table team. We had some wins. We had some losses. We had some draws. We were exactly mid-table, and therefore we're getting a 5. I graded on a curve last year for the on-the-field performance.
On a mountain, more like.
And I'm not doing that this year. We were mid-table. We're getting a 5
On the field.
on the field.
Okay. Jim, on the field.
Well, a 5 out of 10 is an F, so I'm not giving that.
This is a guy who works in the school system.
I'm not giving that. I mean, it's a C plus, so I would say a C plus, maybe a C minus plus.
So we're calling a 7 of 10.
Sure.
Jesus.
Again,
you pick your grades. Don't let him bully you.
It's a C. We're mid table. It's a C. It's average.
Don't let him bully you. I am also giving a 5 out of 10, but I'm giving.
That is insane.
But
That's not even a high F. That is a low F. That's
hang on.
That's like
Let's
you
go
can't
back.
be in school anymore ever. You get suspended.
But I'm not.
In your system, you're getting 5 points out of 10
Automatically, that's right.
for just like putting your name on the
Just
test.
showing up. Put your name on the test. You get a 5.
I'm doing mine like soccer ratings that newspapers give,
Oh, okay.
where a 6 is actually pretty high.
Yeah, 6 is pretty good. Yeah.
And a 7 is very
Sixes
high.
and sevens, yeah.
And an 8 is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm giving a 5 out of 10. And
Okay.
I was
That's an
considering
F.
I was
That's an
considering lower, but it is an F. And
I'm really shocked that we ended up at the same result.
I was going to do 4 actually, but I decided to do 5. And here's actually I had a different rationale, but the same conclusion that you did because of how the WPSL playoffs went, with Charlotte winning it all and Nashville being incredibly good. It gave me more perspective, and I went 5 out of 10. As if you had asked me at the end of the season, I would have given us like a 3.5 or a 4.
That's ridiculous.
I was very
Like
upset.
Like a 2.
I was very upset. All right, off the field, Jim, you can go first this time.
Oh, a solid B.
So 8 of 10.
Sure.
I'm writing these down.
Yeah.
Matthew.
I thought I thought we took some marginal strides. I'm thinking mostly in the streaming department.
Marginal's harsh. solid step
Okay,
forward.
fine. I think we took a solid step forward off the field, and therefore I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I'm giving a 7 out of 10. I think we did big steps forward in almost everything I wanted, except the doubleheaders.
Oh, well.
There was not enough women's standalone games. Mm-hmm. And that was, I don't want to call it a lack of respect, but like it did not allow for, and we didn't have any other friendlies during the season, so it was only 4. So we had basically 3 doubleheaders.
2 doubleheaders, 2 standalone.
That's right. The 2 doubleheaders plus the schedule shaking out where we had 1 at home and Nashville on the road. That sucked. And
Yeah, that's got to happen, though, I think.
it is, but
We had 2 different ones of the Women's Football Club of Charlotte match.
Yes, true.
A home match for CFC men.
Yeah.
But I'm grading a little harder on that one because I really didn't like how the schedule shook out. I'm not sure why, but overall, I did not like the schedule.
I can actually tell you why the second doubleheader happened. Bob Friedland.
Yeah, he said it earlier.
Hey, I know he did.
He was just like, hey, we're not playing the. Remember how like the schedule changed like
Yeah.
like very very early on, like all of a sudden like schedule was just different. Bob Friedland just fucking called us up and said, hey, by the way, we're not coming that day. We're coming this day.
And so why do we have a doubleheader then?
Because the women were already scheduled.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. So regardless, I mean, we should have told Bob Freeland to go fuck himself. And I'll tell him right now, hey, Bob Freeland, go fuck yourself. I didn't like the doubleheaders. That part wasn't cool.
I'm planning, if the rumors are true,
What rumors?
I hope to be doing that in a few
Of us joining the USLW League?
at,
Wow,
some,
Matthew.
at some point in time.
Okay. So off the field, yeah. Overall, I'll go first. So that it's all equal here. My overall is 6 of 10. I just averaged the 2. Again, it's on the player rating scale,
It's
not
a
that.
freaking D.
Well,
It's a low D. Actually, some places that's an F.
some places that is an F.
Come on. man.
We weren't good enough on the field. And so 6 of 10, I consider a passing grade.
D's mean degrees, right?
D's almost sometimes get degrees as long as they're not in your core subjects.
That's right.
I'm giving a 6 of 10. It's halfway between my 5 and my 7. it's the lowest like possible acceptable grade for this year, in part because we didn't get that much better on the field. I mean, we got better. I'm sorry, we got quite a bit better on the field.
Yeah.
We were not where I wanted us to be.
Sure.
And again, right after the season, I would have graded us much more harshly because I really, really wanted us to see, and I believe we should be the class of the WPSL and of women's soccer. But I've also given some reasons here during this podcast why I think it is more difficult to do that. So 6 of 10, I'm not super disappointed. There's a lot of room to improve. Jim.
Yeah, I mean it's a B minus. I mean it was C plus, B minus, whatever.
7.5.
7.5. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Matthew.
3.
Are you going to add your 5 and 8 this time and do 13?
13 out of 10.
No. But I'm glad you reminded me
13
that.
out of 10, no notes.
I'm glad that you reminded me it was a 5 and it was an 8. So last year I took the what did I give last year?
A 9.
9.
Oh yeah, because I added
You
7 out of
said
10.
you said 7 out of 10 off the field, 2 out of 10 on the field, but it doesn't matter. They came back. It's a 9 of 10 overall.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously I graded
On a mountain.
I graded on an absolute mountain.
You're like
curve.
the PE teacher that comes in to teach math.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's literally actually Matthew's 5.
And large weight was given, extreme weight was given to like the off the field stuff, because it was brought back and because like everywhere except on the field it was you can't say a step in the right direction because you're starting from scratch, but like it was really, really good.
Right.
We got better off the field, in my opinion, from the first year to the second year. But I said very, very clearly that that we got a pass on the field for that first season, and then it actually mattered in year 2. Therefore, I'm going to give more weight and on the average bullshit thing. I'm going to give more weight to the on the field grade than I will the off the field grade, and I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Because like, and that 6 is mostly like, yeah, we made a giant stride forward on the field product. But we belong. I believe we belong. And if you don't believe that we belong, you can go fuck yourself. I believe we belong in the upper echelon of not even just the Southeastern Conference, but WPSL and women's amateur soccer in this country. I want to be the fucking best. And we need another giant step.
Mm-hmm. We need as big a step as we made from 1-1-6 to 3-3 and 3-2-3. We need as big a step from that we made this year again forwut.
Right.
Because it needs to be 6-0-1.
Because I believe we will take care of the players off the field. I believe that we're going to put a good product, in the stand, and like, you know, give the respect that the team deserves and the match day environment deserves. I believe all those things. I would love to find ways to improve on that, but like I believe all those things are going to happen. The on the field product is where it has to get better. Again, it must.
Beautiful. Well, boys, do we have anything we want to add here? I think we've summed up the season. We've done a bunch of listener questions, and I think
we've been sitting here long enough that the women's season is supposed to start in like 15 minutes.
Well, we better go then. Listeners, thank you for listening. Viewers, thank you for viewing. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, we're
over there on if it's still recording. Who knows if it's still recording? But thank you, boys, for joining us, or for joining me for doing the thing. And listeners, we'll catch up with you soon. Peace.